I will do it again if given the opportunity. Former President Goodluck Jonathan restates decision to back Governor Doye Diri's re-election in Bayelsa State, says he has no regrets. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, releases timetable and schedule of activities ahead of the February by-election exercise. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. Well, the new year is 3 days old and political activities are beginning to buzz the headlines as power brokers and policymakers return to work, just like every other person in the country. And of course, we've been following developments in the polity, one of which is the latest being the notice by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, releasing the timetable and schedule of activities for by-election of various affected senatorial districts, federal and state constituencies across the country. In a release by INEC, notice of election will be made public on Thursday, the 4th of January the 4th. That's in 2024, in line with Section 28, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. Notifying participating political parties to conduct primaries, including resolution of dispute arising from primaries between the 5th and the 9th of January to enable them nominate candidates for the elections as required by law in February. Now, the by-election follows the death or resignation of members of the national or state assemblies. While Ebonyi South Senatorial District and Yobe East will be having a by-election, some of the affected federal constituencies are Akoko North, East, Akoko Northwest, Jalingo Yoro Zingfede Federal Constituency, Surulere 1 Federal Constituency in Lagos State, and Yaru Shanga Gaski Federal Constituency in Kebbi State. Also, Chibok and Chikun, as well as Guma State Constituency in Borno, Kaduna, and Benue State will all be having by-elections. Let's move on now. The Ondo State government has dissolved the caretaker local government administrations across the 18 local government areas and the newly created 33 local council development areas, that's LCDAs of the state. The government also directed the heads of local government administration in each of the council to take charge of administration. In a memo by Mr. Adewale Alonge on behalf of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, dated January the 2nd, 2024, the said decision was based on the pronouncement of a court order on the exercise. The statement further asked that it's been directed to request all heads of the local government administrations to retrieve without delay all assets and property of the LGAs and LCDAs with the former caretaker chairman, vice chairman, and other members for safekeeping. Well, you remember there was an election or by-election not too long ago in November across 3 states. Now, former President Goodluck Jonathan has maintained that he has no regret for supporting the re-election of Bayelsa State Governor Senator Doye Diri in the November 11 governorship off-cycle election. Dr. Jonathan says that it was the right thing to do as the governor had the support of the majority of the people to continue in office. The former president stated this position that's today in Yenagoa when Governor Diri paid him a courtesy visit at his residence in Yenagoa, the state capital.
During the elections, and I have no apologies to anybody. And I know that time when I came out very clearly, some people say, no, Mr. President, you should. I said, no. There are some wars that you have to go totally. Yes. There are some that will not. Well, this one is total. And I know why I did that. The governor is trying. But most especially, the issue of peace in the state. I was at a time very, very worried. I'm not saying others have not done well. After all, I was also a governor here for 1.5 years, a little less than 1.5 years. I also had my challenges. But at least, by the time he came on board, the excesses, especially in Yenagoa town here, where even in the broad daylight you see call groups clashing and all kinds of stupid things happening. And it came down reasonably well. And I said that If we must move forward, if you must attract investors, first and foremost, you must handle security. And I think he has tried, and it's good to allow him do the remaining 4 years. And this breaking of, yes, I've been a part of a breaking system, but this breaking of a governor's tenure, I'm not always happy with it. It doesn't encourage development. Except the performance is extremely poor. And yes, there are some governors that you put, and you see clearly no vision. If there's no vision, there's no need to continue.
Well, we have more stories for you in our political roundup stories. I definitely will bring you our political roundup stories any moment from now. But hey, today on the program, two basic things. But first, the big one. I'm sure you've heard about the federal government's decision to stop giving the report done by Mr. Umar Audu concerning getting certificate. They call it degree mills outside the country. And it's affected places like Togo and Benin. And the federal government has put a suspension to all of that evaluation from those two countries, as well as other decisions by the federal government concerning degrees from other degree mills across the world, including places like the United States and all of that. So I'm going to be joined at some point on the program hopefully by the Minister of Education, who will be walking us through what has been going on as far as this is concerned in our country. But for now, let's get back to our political roundup stories, and we'll be back for that chat. Stay with us.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, is expected to question the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, over an alleged 37.1 billion naira fraud. A top EFCC source confirmed this to Channels Television in a telephone interview on Wednesday. Umar Farouk served as minister under former President Muhammadu Buhari from August 2019 to May of 2023. Just last week, the former minister was invited by the Anti-Graft Agency following a probe that was launched into her activities during her tenure as minister. Sadiya Umar Farouk is being investigated over the sum of 37.1 billion naira allegedly laundered under her watch through a contractor, James Okwete. Meanwhile, the EFCC has arrested and detained the suspended National Coordinator and Chief Executive Officer of the National Social Investment Program Agency, Mrs. Halima Shehu. Mrs. Shehu was arrested over the ongoing probe into the over 37 billion naira allegedly laundered in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development under the former minister. The chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum and Imo State Governor, Senator Hope Uzodinma, has commended President Bola Tinubu for his generosity over the donation of 3,000 bags of rice to Christians in the Southeast through the Christian Association of Nigeria for the Yuletide celebration. Speaking during the handing over of the bags of rice to Christian Association of Nigeria chairman in the Southeast in Owerri, the Imo State capital, the governor explains that the gesture underscores the love the president has for the people of the Southeast. Governor Uba Sani of Kaduna State has inaugurated a special implementation and monitoring committee to ensure accountability and transparency in the disbursement of all interventions provided to victims of the December 3rd, 2023 military airstrike at Tudumbiri community in Igabi local government area of the state. The committee is chaired by the Deputy Governor, Mrs. Hadiza Balarabe, while membership of the committee is drawn from representatives of victims of the incident, community leaders, religious and political leaders. The governor inaugurated the committee at the Executive Council chamber of Sir Kashim Ibrahim Government House in the state capital. Residents of Zidu community in Abuja are appealing to President Bola Tinubu and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory to urgently intervene and stop a planned demolition of their houses without compensation or relocation by the Federal Housing Authority, FHA. The residents who staged a peaceful protest against the planned demolition allege that some officials of the Federal Housing Authority are conniving with some estate developers to displace residents of the community. Officials of the community put the affected people at over 1,500 families.
Welcome back. So those are your political roundup stories. And of course, I did tell you before that we'll be having the Minister of Education joining us. Yesterday, we had a former Deputy Executive Secretary of the NUC talk about this development. He said, look, it's not as new as a novel as we take it, but this has unearthed many things now and is now in public glare, and the public is watching to see how the federal government is responding to this. So if you're not familiar with this story, a young man did an investigation, went undercover, and was able to secure a degree in the Republic of Benin, in Cotonou, to be specific, in just 6 weeks. But the certification has been there for 4 years. As a matter of fact, he never left Nigeria for a day. With that certificate he obtained in 6 weeks, he was able to enroll and mobilize for the NYSC. He served before, and the NYSC system could not detect that he served before. He was posted to Cross River State until he published the report. And due to that discovery, the Federal Ministry of Education responded by suspending evaluation of degrees from certificate from Togo and Benin Republic. So, well, the Minister of Education has joined us from our Abuja studio. So let's bring in Professor Tahir Mamman. Professor Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me this evening.
Yes, Prof, there's a lot to talk about. Your ministry is in focus today, so I want to explore as much as possible. When I did have a conversation yesterday, Prof, with a former Deputy Executive Secretary of the NUC, he said this is a perennial problem in his words, according to him. So sometimes I'm wondering, for this particular incident, given the enormity of what happened in terms of the undercover report, I'm wondering why it took the young man to risk his life, you know, spend resources and time and all of that to be able to get the federal ministry to act the way it did. I don't know whether you can respond to that, sir.
Well, as I said, thank you. This is actually a global problem. It's not a Nigerian problem as such. And Nigeria has been very active in this arena. This is not the first time the ministry is aware of this problem, and it's been able to keep at bay the activities of degree mill purveyors in many ways. And if I may probably at this very early stage give you an information here which I have before me.
Please go ahead.
This is a report of a committee sometime in late 2022 in the NUC, where they set up a committee on degree mills. And right there in Nigeria, we were able to uncover about 8 institutions being run by individuals who try to set up such mills in the country. And one of them actually was an institution in Benin that sought to operate a similar outfit in Zaria. And they come under various very nice, seductive names: European American University, Lagos, Oxford School for Continuing Education, Umahia International, Joint Professional Training, located all over the country, actually, with campuses. Imperial College Advanced Studies, Kano, African Robots, Benue, Medical University of Nigeria, Kaduna. So when this young journalist brought up this matter, it's not as if it's something really new. And probably what even facilitated his work was the initial response from the ministry when he showed up with a passport that didn't indicate that he was in Benin for his studies. The ministry refused to consider what he brought until he went back. Somehow he was able to get his passport stamped with visas backdated. And so this was a problem. Probably at that stage too, could have simply said, the ministry could have simply said, look, made a report to immigration. For me, this is the main weak area. Otherwise, the system in place is quite robust. The ministry has been very active in preventing this from happening. And as I said, it's a very major, just like drugs, it's a major international problem which countries have been grappling to deal with. Some of them go to offshore countries that are outside normal regulatory frameworks of education managers and operate there. And I also recall investigating a certificate, PhD certificate produced by a staff in a university, who sought to be employed. And we were able to trace that it was actually obtained from a degree mill. So it's really not something new. But that isn't to say that what he has done is not of value. It's still a wake-up call for us. And that's why we quickly swung into action to stop, suspend recognition of certificates and qualifications from those countries that are in the forefront of this business. And I can tell you that we are not going to stop at just Togo and Benin. We are going to extend the drag net. We know some countries already like Uganda, Kenya, even in Nigeria, where such institutions have been set up. Not institutions, they don't actually have physical institutions, a lot of them. They just operate undercover, and like one of them we have here, from the report I saw, they attempted to operate or operated from a law firm. I'll get more details on that in due course. So they don't have really physical sites. They are just very clandestine in their operations. So it's not something new to us, but we need to protect our employers. We need to protect the integrity of our qualifications. Now, the students who patronize them are not victims. We need to emphasize this. They are criminals, because you have no business where no student or Nigerian has any business going to patronize such places, go there, pay money, disappear and reappear after a while with what you call qualifications, which really they are not qualifications at all. So I have no sympathy for such people. Instead, they are part of the criminal chain that should be arrested. And I think that's what the ADC have been doing with ICPC and DSS. All the operations they've carried out so far, they've been doing that together with operation with
Prof,
the
if I'm important.
So the committee is to look at.
Yes, Prof, I wanted to ask two basic questions. Just apologies. I wanted to ask two basic questions. First, and as you said, just like your colleague has said, look, this is a perennial problem. Now, I'm sure Nigerians are aware, but what is of interest to Nigeria, I want to presume, is what happens now. First question I want to ask you is, what is the committee looking into? How soon are we going to get the outcome or the conclusion of that particular investigation? And will the findings of that committee be made public so that we know that, okay, if there are people within the ministry that are complicit in patronizing or aiding this criminality, we know they are brought to book. So first and foremost, what are they looking into? Second, how soon are we getting to hear the outcome of this investigation? And what are the punishments should we be expecting? Will it be made public?
Well, the starting point is that the committee is going to review the operations of the various ministries and agencies responsible for recognition and accrediting of degrees from outside the country. And we are already working on being vigilant on the internal mechanisms for those who try to sneak into the country. But for those who go offshore, for those ones, we want to strengthen the system such that nobody can bypass or come in whatsoever with such qualifications and get any recognition whatsoever, whether it is through the ministry or even immigration. And even today, incidentally, I discussed the matter with my colleague in internal affairs, and They are going to look at the systems of passport and to ensure that such thing will not be able to happen by immigration people. However, it was done. And then secondly, we will ensure that henceforth there's this interagency collaboration very clearly in the operations of such recognition of such degrees. And so basically, and then of course, when the work of the committee is done, it's going to be published, and then those who are found culpable in any way, will certainly be brought to book, and that's why we are having security agencies on the committee to play that role. And we will make it public in the same way that the suspension of those degrees from those countries were publicly done. Nothing is going to be kept undercover at all, because it is our job to protect our employers who, by chance, may end up employing people who don't have qualifications and the skills which they claim to offer through the certificates. And it is also our job to protect the integrity of our educational system, both locally and globally. Nigeria has a very respected qualification system. We have a duty to protect that.
All right, Prof. I'm going to ask that question maybe for you to reemphasize what I think Nigerians are expecting to answer. This is not the first time, with all sense of respect, I must add that, Nigerians are hearing committee being set up. The reason I asked for timeline is because we are used to promises and promises. So in boosting public confidence, I suppose and I presume that a lot of the public want to know from the good professor, yet we just suspended this evaluation or accreditation from these schools. This thing should take us in the next 2 to 3 months. This should take us so number of weeks, given this number of people involved, and latest so time, we should be expecting an outcome. Exactly, that's exactly what I'm trying to get out of this conversation, sir. Can you put a timeline to this conclusion?
Yeah, from the way we reacted, I think it can easily be deciphered that this is not a government that takes long on implementation of decisions. We have a president who is businesslike, and so this committee will start to work immediately. And then as soon as there are reports, it's my own belief that they shouldn't have more than 3 months to conclude their report. And when you suspend programs from countries, they will be interested, they will be worried. And so we are not going to keep that long, because there are also innocent people and also innocent institutions out there who don't want things to hang on their neck for too long. So putting a timeline, I really don't see anything more than 3 months, beyond 3 months, for us to get this out of the way.
So I wanted to also
that, find...
okay,
it may... Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
The work of the committee may involve traveling to some of these countries, to interact with some of the regulatory agencies in those places. And as I said earlier on, there's a good chance that we are not going to stop at those 2 countries alone, because from the report that we have already, it extends to many countries, Western Africa, Central Africa, and all that. Of course, we are not going on a voyage of discovery, but we'll do everything possible to ensure we get necessary information on some of those places.
So one other thing I wanted to find out from you, Prof, is how far-reaching is this? Because given what you said, if it's a perennial problem, we can presume that some people who have gotten degrees from these degree mills have already infiltrated the system. So from what time, are you just taking from the people now going forward, or you're looking as far back as you can? Because we don't know where they are. They could be in government, they could be in your office, they could be anywhere. How far-reaching, how far back, how deep are you going?
Well, if along the line we are able to trace that there are people already in the system, for instance, if a particular institution or operator has been operating, say, in the last 10 years, we'll check to see if we can get records of Nigerians who attended that institutions. And then once we do that, they are criminals. And there's no time frame to criminality. So we'll trace them. As long as we're able to lay our hands on their institutions and they are right here with us. Certainly, the security agency will go after them because they are criminals. That's what they are.
Let's talk about, for the benefit of the public, I know you said the people participate or take on these degree meals, they know exactly what they are doing. But for the benefit of the public, what exactly are the minimum requirements in terms of criteria for the Nigerian state to accept degrees from outside our country? I mean, what do you look at as a Nigerian government? Say, if we are to obtain or respect or acknowledge or approve or take in someone from XYZ countries, these are the criteria they must fulfill for us to be able to say, indeed, you went to school, you graduated with a degree, and then you're qualified to serve or to work within the Nigerian shores. I know it may be a lot, but some basics for the benefit of the public.
Well, the Universities Commission have prescriptions on what a student ought to have before he can be eligible for admission to Nigerian universities. So we expect similar requirements in those countries, if not more. And then the duration of the program, too, is also very important because, as you have seen, you have people collecting qualifications in 6 months. You know that such a person wouldn't have been trained in any way, even if he stayed there, but they don't even stay anyway. They just register and disappear. So various countries have prescriptions or requirements for admitting people into universities. But same here. So if somebody is graduating from abroad, the ministry, together the Universities Commission, have set criteria against which they are weighed when somebody comes in for a program against what are prescribed here. And if the criteria are not met, and then they will not be recognized. And that's why even here, we have criteria for recognizing universities and qualifications abroad. And the ministry has a list of institutions across the world, that meet all those criteria. If they don't meet the criteria across various disciplines which they offer, the ministry doesn't give them recognition at all. So anybody who attends such institutions will be wasting his time and money.
All right, Prof, a few more questions before I let off this issue of degree meals. There's an internal problem. I was very curious, and I keep asking that question. The particular issue of interest to me is the fact that this gentleman has done his youth service before. He said he filled in his phone number and his email address, it flagged, and he changed it. But one of the most fundamental ways to identify individuals, even in our election, is biometrics. Somehow, biometrics went through. His thumb printed before to serve, he did it again, and he did not flag. What is going on?
Well, I presume that's a failure of technology. Sometimes it happens. You have this sort of thing happening. And so it's for the technical people to be able to answer that. But as I said, these are some of the things we discussed earlier on with the Minister for Internal Affairs, Interior, so that we simply have a one identification system, in our country. And so that you don't carry different identification when you go to, depending on the places you go to. But if there is Purely in terms of the technology, that's a bit of a problem and it's a bit of a worry.
Prof, just one more question. I just don't want to let you go without asking you about the student loan. What's the status of that, sir?
The president has given his word that it will be operational from this year, actually from this quarter. And the committee is working very hard to ensure that the president's word is implemented. And I remember last week of December, I interacted with that committee, and they are working very vigorously to ensure that the students' loan board become operational as scheduled. So it is on course.
Well, there's a lot I would have wanted to ask you, but I understand we don't have so much time, Prof, but there's a lot on this students' loan issue. I wanted to go through the legislation that brought it to be, which is about 23 provisions in that act to see how people can get scholarship or some level of sponsorship, because there are gray areas we need to talk about. But unfortunately, we don't have that time right now. So I want to thank you, Professor Taher Mamman, the Minister of Education, for coming on the program to respond to this latest development as far as the issue of degree mills are concerned. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming on the program.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, when we come back, we'll switch gears, and I'm going to be joined by the Chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Honorable Alhassan Ado Doguwa, who will be exploring some of the latest policies of government and issues that has to do with that particular sector. Please join us again. Welcome back. Still Politics Today right here on Channels Television, and of course we discuss everything that has to do with governance and politics across Nigeria. And I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about when it comes to what will happen to the price of PMS, the Dangote refinery, the Port Harcourt refinery, and all of that. Well, there's a lot of questions to ask, but we're hopeful, according to the president, that things will come upstream. And who better to answer some of the questions than someone who is oversighting that particular sector of the economy. So I'm being joined from Kano studio by the member representing Doguwa Tudunwada's constituency in Kano State and the Chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Mr. Alhassan Ado Doguwa. Mr. Doguwa, thank you so much for coming on the program, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much, my brother. It's my pleasure to be with you on this very important platform.
All right, there's a lot to talk about, but let's begin with a few things off the chest, which is, if you search the internet and I search your name and I get to see, okay, I realize that you've been in the House for like 16 years, if I'm correct. So by the time you've been since 2007, please, if I'm wrong with the numbers, you can quickly correct me. By the time you end your tenure this time, if you choose not to run again, it's about 20 years. So, but I see that the last election was characterized by, forgive my numbers if they're incorrect. I see that the last election was characterized by a lot of, headlines around violence, around murder allegation, around all kinds of things. But I needed you, maybe just for a starter, before we get to some of this national issue, how that is going and what has been concluded so far, because you are now in the House and you are even a former leader, a majority leader of the House.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, my brother. And for the numbers you have mentioned, you are not far away from the truth, but only some mixed up. I think to put things straight, I started in the House of Representatives as early as 1992. And that was the Babangida transition program, if you remember. And, it was a short-lived transition. Of course, we were not able to finish that tenure. Probably for those who may wish to know, it was that same tenure where, with due respect to Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he also was a member of the National Assembly, of course in the Senate, and I was in the House of Representatives. That was when Mr. President started his electoral outing as an elected representative of the people. And at that time also I was, by God's grace, elected to represent the people of Dogwa Federal Constituency from Kano State under the Social Democratic Party, SDP. And for the crisis you have just mentioned, I think for those who are up to date, for those who follow of events as they unfold, I would like to say, without any fear of contradiction and with all sense of authority, that it was a political crisis, political shenanigans, most of which were simply embedded through what you call campaign of calumny, basically for political opponents to probably paint me black. And I wouldn't want to discuss so much. What happened has happened. What never happened did not happen. But at least at the end, I will be glad to tell Nigerians that just like I've been saying, it was a case of blackmail. It was, of course, a case that had no basis whatsoever. A case that was simply targeted at my national ambition, probably to be in the leadership of the 10th National Assembly. I want to say without any fear of contradiction that going through the litigation process, right from the investigation conducted by the Kano Command of Nigeria Police, the investigation through or by the Special Investigation Team from the 1st CID headquarters from Abuja that came and also re-investigated the matter holistically. And even when we went to court at the Federal High Court in Kano here, sometimes about 4 or 5 months ago, all decisions, judgments by courts have proven me innocent. Right from day one, the Attorney General of the state government then in the past government came up with what you call the legal advice, and in his legal advice, I was exonerated, having no connection whatsoever with any crisis or case of murder or case of homicide in the said crisis during the election.
Okay.
And so also, we took up the matter to a competent court immediately when the new government came into power. The governor of the state, who is of course a governor of the NNPP, having known the fact that, there is someone from the southern part of the state whose boundaries could not be penetrated. And that was my humble self. My boundaries could not be penetrated by any opposition party. I delivered APC right from my ward and to all other 21 wards of my federal constituency. I delivered my state assembly APC member. I delivered the second local government to APC. I also delivered my senatorial election result for my APC candidate.
If you can hear me, Honorable.
God delivered me as the member representing Dogwa to the
Honorable, if you can hear me.
Of that same constituency. I want to say without any fear of...
Honorable. All right, Honorable, if you can hear me quickly, because I needed to ask that question, given the fact that, we understand people died. I needed you to explain yourself in all of this. I needed you to be clear as to, because we read a lot of things about you in the media as far as this particular issue is concerned. So I need to get that clarity. But I don't know, can you hear me, sir? I just wanted to be sure you can hear me because I was trying to stop, but you were not here.
Yes,
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay, because of the fatality involved. So first and foremost, let me establish, whatever happened, people died in that incident. Am I correct, sir?
Oh, yes, it was a political crisis.
No, that's not my question. I just wanted to be, people died in that incident.
Yes.
Okay. And at no time were you seen with gun or leading any thug or anybody to go and destroy anything. I just wanted to be sure. I'm just putting facts on record.
I want to tell you now that not only by my opinion, there was no circumstances whatsoever where anybody or someone saw me with a gun shooting anybody. I never shot anyone, and the courts have proven that. What I'm telling you now is a judicial position, judicial statement. I have not been seen with a gun. The report of the police did not find me culpable, and I have been exonerated by the legal advice of the State Attorney General. And as I'm speaking to you today, I have a court order from a Federal High Court, Abuja, that has stopped any further indictment or any further allegation by the government of the state or any other person in the name of that investigation, because reports have come to prove that I had no connection whatsoever to the death of that person who lost his life during the crisis. It is an NNPP shenanigans. It's an NNPP machinations wanting to simply trap me and set me up into unnecessary political crisis. And as God may have it, today I speak to you as an innocent person by judicial pronouncements, not by personal opinion or by statement of power.
Okay, all right. That's noted. I needed to ask you those direct questions because it's about getting the facts. That's why we were here. We're not going to speculate.
I appreciate these questions. I put it to you that today I am exonerated by the laws of the country. I am also exonerated by competent laws in the country.
All right. So maybe some of the time we're going to... So that we don't take all the time talking about this issue. Honorable, if you can hang on. All right, Honorable, if you can, so that we don't take all the time talking about the issue, I needed to get the elephant out of the room, and you've explained your position. So let's move on to other issues. And the issue is, I just want to ask a simple question, because you are chairman of the Committee on Petroleum Upstream. First question, are you concerned about the hardship that Nigerians are going through occasioned by the policy that affects that sector?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, my brother, as a Nigerian, and as someone that is representing my own people in the federal parliament.
Go ahead. We can hear you, Honorable.
Like you have rightly said, as a member representing my people, and by extension representing Nigerian people in the Federal House of Representatives, definitely one will have to be concerned by the new policies of government within the sector, within the oil and gas sector, especially the hike or the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy. But when you are concerned, you need to ask some questions. What is the withdrawal of fuel subsidy meant for? And what are the economic implications of such withdrawal? In fact, when Mr. President, first of all, announced the withdrawal on the day of his inaugural ceremony, on the day of his oath of office, I was concerned. I felt, it was not the right decision to be taken at that right time. But immediately when engagements continued, and we now begin to understand the robust concern of the Nigerian government under Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and you also reflect on the need for us to kickstart the reformatory intentions of government through the use of what you call the PIA, Petroleum Industry Bill, then definitely you would have no option than to do exactly what Mr. President did. And those of us who are his ambassadors in the periphery, in the local areas, in the states, we have gone far now in trying to let people understand, yes, the withdrawal of fuel subsidy is for good, and for the good of Nigerian economy, and for the good of Nigerian people. Ask Nigerian governors now. Go to Nigerian Governors Forum. Ask my governor in Kano State now. Ask the governor of Enugu. Ask the governor of Lagos State. They will tell you what that has reflected in terms of the money, what we call subventions, that is being released to various states through statutory transfers. What is also reflecting on the basis of transfers to local government areas through the transfer of funding from the federal government.
If I may butt in, Honorable, if you can hear me. Because I have a series of questions. The reason I asked that question is because sometimes when we see what goes on in the National Assembly, in the People's House, as it's called, in the nation's capital, it appears to people like, do these lawmakers really care about the welfare and the well-being of the people? We understand that the budget, 27.5 trillion naira, was presented by President Bola Tinubu, and there was an upward review to 28.7, which is about 1.2 upwardly reviewed trillion additionally added. And from what I see, correct me if I'm wrong, I always say that so that we are sure we're on the same data. If the National Assembly, as you say and claim, is very concerned, and your committee is concerned, being the committee that oversees that sector, we see that the National Assembly budget was reviewed upward. Is that correct, sir?
Oh, yes. It was reviewed
upward. It was reviewed upward by 74%. Is that correct, sir?
What?
74% increase, 197 to 344 billion. Is that correct, sir?
Oh, it's not up to 74%. It's not up to 74%.
Okay, let's leave out the percentage. What was it and what is it now?
You see, what the president presented was slightly like between 25 to 26 trillion. And what it is precisely now on the records is about 28 trillion, which was signed by Mr. President.
No, Honorable, I'm talking about the budget. I'm talking about the budget of the National Assembly.
Or the executive arm of government is nothing but a proposal, recommendation, estimate. Then
Honorable, if you can hear me, Honorable, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yes, I was saying, but in the initial 27.5 trillion that was presented by the president as his initial proposal in the appropriation bill, yes, which now ended as 28.7, yes, how much was it that was budgeted, earmarked for the National Assembly in the first presentation? How much is it now that it has been scaled up to 28.7%? That's just my question.
It's not 28.7%. He presented 27.75 trillion, and
yes,
it's now jacked up by only 1.56 trillion. Get the records clear.
Honorable, you're not getting my point. Honorable, I'm not talking about. Honorable, just hold on. Just hold on. If you can hear me, please. I'm not talking about the budget size. I'm talking about the budget of the National Assembly. Every sector, every arm of government, every ministry have their budget and their, line items. How much was the budget of the National Assembly? Yes. How much was it now increased to? It's been increased. That's what I'm asking. For the National Assembly.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, great, but I'm not hearing you clearly.
Okay, Honorable, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm saying, how much did the government earmark for the National Assembly, and how much was it now increased to after it was reviewed upwards? I just wanted facts. How much is budgeted for NAS?
Yes. You see, what was actually budgeted for NAS by Mr. President was actually slightly lower than what we have finally passed into law. And I also want to let you understand that just like we have increased on the coppers or on the envelope of the National Assembly, of course, for very obvious and operational institutional reasons, we have also reconsidered budgeted funds for other agencies and sectors of government like Ministry of Defense, like the Police Affairs, like Ministry of Agriculture, like the Health Ministry. Our own engagement was not specifically meant for only the National Assembly. So I would want to also ask you, why do you want to put back other engagements or other increase in some other sectors, and you want to particularly ask about the National Assembly budget?
Because you're a member of the National Assembly, Honorable.
Each time you want to speak about any issue to do with Nigeria, you focus on the National Assembly.
Yes, Honorable, I will tell you why. I will tell you why.
Reviewed for the bill for the presidency, how much we have reviewed for Ministry of Defense, how much we have reviewed for Ministry of Health and Agriculture. It's like you are asking an opinionated question. Sorry to put it back to you. And you don't have to always bring issues that will incite Nigerians unnecessarily.
If,
the money that we have
Honorable,
increased for the funding and institutional operations of the National Assembly are justified because we have so many other legislative institutions under the National Assembly that work with us. We have
Which
the
is
NIMS
why
working under the National Assembly. We have the management under the National Assembly. We have NABRO under the National Assembly. We have our aides under the National Assembly. We also have some structural development that we have to come up to build the National Assembly so that the kind of National Assembly we have will be one that can compete with every other National Assembly anywhere in the globe.
Honorable, if you can hear me,
should not be seen as
Honorable Dagua, if you can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
But you are breaking.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
The reason I'm asking you, first and foremost, if the president is seated where you're seated, I have the opportunity to talk to him one-on-one, I will ask him similar question that has to do with the presidency. You are a member of the National Assembly. The people see you as the people's representative. So it is only natural that the first person they will talk to is their representative. So when they see line items like National Assembly car park project costing maybe $3 billion for the Senate alone, and then for the House of Rep, $3 billion, they see procurement of books for NAS Library for $3 billion, Nigerians will naturally ask questions. When they see things like Recreation Center for National Assembly costing $4 billion, they will ask questions. So I hope you understand. So your responsibility coming on the show today, because you said you care about the people. So in caring for the people, we've talked about the cost of governance. And the government is bleeding in terms of our deficit is high. We just securitized 7-point-something billion. We just got crude, the money from Afreximbank, 2.25 billion out of the 3 billion. And it's like we're borrowing for the future. Almost we're in dire straits. So everybody has to cut costs. So seated here as a member of the National Assembly, Nigerians will want to know, what are you doing to cut costs to show that you empathize with the people? Which is why it's not as if anybody's taking on you. People are just asking, what is our people, what are the people's representatives doing to cut costs to help in managing the affairs of state? Honorable Dogua.
Yes, sir.
Did you hear all I said?
Yes, I've heard you.
Okay, I need your response because we're running out of time.
Clear. Sorry, my brother, my response is to these questions is only natural to tell you that why is it that you people of the fourth estate of the Rim don't always look at the good side of our work as representative of the people, but you always look at the other side of it. If you are talking of increments of the budget of our institution as a legislature, I would like you also to see how much we have impacted in the area of security. The government brought less than 2 trillion naira for Nigerian Ministry of Defense. We have reviewed it now to over 3 billion. The government brought less than 1.5 trillion naira for education. We have reviewed that to over 2 trillion. The government brought less than 1 trillion for health sector. We have reviewed that to over 1.5 trillion naira to the health sector. So it's only natural if you look at the budget holistically and see what we have done as representative of the people. And when you insist, you want to hear from me my view as to why we have increased the National Assembly budget, it is only natural for me to explain to you that when you hear a budget for National Assembly, it's not for the 109 senators of the House of Senate. It's not also for the 360 members of the House of Representatives. A budget for the National Assembly is a holistic and lump sum budget for all of the institutions, departments, and sectoral creations in what we call the National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. When you ask of recreation, for instance, when you ask, for instance, for parking spaces for our cars, it's also logical. If you want me to work in an atmosphere that one can really bring out the best out of him, definitely I need a car parking space. I also need a recreational facility like we do see when we travel outside Nigeria in other assemblies of the world, in other parliaments. And if you go to the villa, for instance, if you go to the presidency and to the various ministries of the federal government, you will also see same parking spaces provided for their officials. Then why is it a special question from you asking that we have budgeted for our parking spaces, we have budgeted for recreational centers? We have done that in the best interest of the institution of the Nigerian legislature. We need to be up and doing. We need to be held and hearty to be able to perform optimally to the expectation of our people. We have
budgeted
significantly convenient for the agricultural sector. We have also budgeted significantly and responsibly for the health sector. That means if you look at the whole budget itself, let me tell you one thing that you may not know. The whole budget of the 28-point-something trillion naira, do you know that what we have taken in the institution of the legislature is less than 2% of the whole budget?
Honorable, we can keep this conversation going, but unfortunately, we're totally out of time. We're totally out of time. But I must thank you, Honorable Alassane Ado Doguwa, member representing Doguwa Tudunwada State Constituency, and the chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Upstream. Honorable, thank you so much for coming. I'm sure we're going to bring you back because there's a lot the people want to ask from their representatives. I want to thank you, viewers, for being part of the program. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Good night and God bless Nigeria.